guys.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for coming back and joining us tonight. Yes, you see our wonderful guest, Dr. Burkett. She's waving at everybody. I guess I'll wave too. So, listen, we are very excited to come back with part two of the spectrum autism discussion that we started about a week ago. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to ask everybody that can and will, if you would please take a moment and share. Share with your loved ones, share with your friends, share with your frenemies, your neighbors. Share with some of everybody you can because this is such an important topic. And I realize that everybody probably got things to do tonight and we could have canceled and rescheduled, but I didn't want to do that. The sun is shining and the knowledge is going to shine too on this platform tonight with Dr. Olivia Burkett. And so I felt like this sunshine was a little bit more important. So, Dr. Burkett, welcome back. You are so gorgeous.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much, Pastor Vicky, for having me. And you're one of the most beautiful people I know, inside and out. Let me
Oh,
get the
bless you.
understand.
Oh,
Let me
thank you so much.
understand. And I'm happy to be here. It's a blessing to be with you again on tonight.
Amen. Wonderful. And I'm glad to know you. I'm glad to know you. Just so you guys know really quickly, we have been Facebook friends, but we never personally met, but we met through a post that I posted in our SALT um, group. And Dr. Burkett was kind enough, out of all the times that she could have commented and didn't comment, she commented this day. And this particular post had to do with an autistic child. And that's how we came to this point because I picked the phone. I got on the comment and responded to her really quickly, then was able to get her number. She was kind enough to share it with me. And we've been talking ever since. And we find out that we are kindred sisters. And
Yes, we are.
so I love her and I'm learning to love her even the more. And I hope after tonight, you will be even more informed and learn to love her and what God has given her for such a time as this. So I'm going to shut up. It is now 7 o'clock, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Burkett for her to, it's actually 7:01, for her to take us on. And I'll, of course, ask you some questions, but you go ahead and recap. Tell everybody who you are again, a little bit about your education, and then go ahead and recap from last week, and then I'll follow through with the questions.
Absolutely. Okay, for those of you who were not here on last week, I am Dr. Olivia C. Burkett. And as I was sharing on last time, my real vocation and my real purpose in life is to be a servant. So I do consider myself not only a woman of God, a minister, ordained minister, but also a servant, an intentional servant. And because of the love I have for God, I love his people, and I have a special place in my heart for all of the families that are struggling with individuals on the spectrum. So that's why I'm here to share that. And why should you pay any attention to anything I have to say? I'll give you a couple of reasons. I've spent the last 30 years really paying close attention to not only the spectrum, but the research as it goes forth and caring for families and individuals. I worked with the Department of Mental Health here in the state of Mississippi for 23 years, where I had children on the spectrum on my caseload. And so just, taking care of them, playing an integral role and part of their treatment team, working with psychiatrists, neurologists, nurses, teachers, speech pathologists, recreational persons, social workers, nurses, everyone on a team played a role in taking care of these children, and having the opportunity to interact with all of those professionals gave me insight as to what part they play in the lives of those on the spectrum, and how what I do can be integrated into what they're doing. And in addition to that, I am a professor of psychology, and I have been for 27 years. So I teach, and teaching abnormal psychology is one of the things that keep this information fresh with me and to me. And so, another piece to this story is God has blessed me to travel around the world, to every continent, throughout North America, South America, Europe, Asia, Africa, and Australia, to come up close and personal with families who have children on the spectrum. I had an opportunity to go in the hospitals, the clinics, the schools, you name it, and just interacted with so many, collected a lot of data, helped a lot of people, and arrived back home November of 2020, and was able to get my research published in Australia just around the time COVID hit. So,
Wow.
yes, so God has trusted me to do a lot. I mean, He has trusted me in places I never could even fathom. And it was
Yes.
all in His plan, because I couldn't have dreamed it. I couldn't have made that up. So it was what He wanted me to do. And I've always just wanted to be in His perfect will. And He has taught me how to serve in that capacity. And so this is only a continuation and an extension of the servitude role. And that's why I could not stop myself from responding to you, Pastor Vicki, when I saw that out there, because that was my lane, and that's
Yes.
where I needed to share again. And I look so forward to doing just great things with you in the future,
Absolutely.
with this topic, and with the families who have the challenge of raising individuals on the spectrum. So just a few seconds about what we did last week. Last week I quickly defined what autism is, and then individuals know that it's a neurodevelopmental disorder, one that we tend to notice the symptoms emerging early in life. It's diagnosed by our observations and by the history and things of that nature of the child. And it's considered a neurodevelopmental disorder, and that puts it in the same category as a lot of other disorders that people mentioned. They brought up IDD, they brought up communication disorders, they brought up ADD, which today is attention deficit hyperactive disorder, and they may not have talked about motor disorders, but all of those are neurodevelopmental disorders, and they're in the same family, a category, as ASD, which is autism spectrum disorder. We covered the history, so we know that it didn't just start during the vaccination period. We know it goes all the way back to the 1400s.
Mhm.
But Martin Luther first had a chance to see a case of it. We talked about why it took so long for us to get the information in the U.S. World War II was happening. Dr. Leo Kanner was here in the U.S. at Johns Hopkins University, but he was not communicating with Dr. Asperger's, Hans Asperger's in Austria because of the war, but they were seeing and had the same research going, and thus that brought us up to basically where we are now on today.
Okay. That's awesome. That's what really surprised me last week was when you said it went all the way back to Martin Luther. I
Yeah,
didn't expect that. You know what I mean? Because for those of us that are, studies of the word, study people that are in theology, we recognize who Martin Luther is.
right.
And so for you to share that was profound. Um,
Thank
yeah, go right ahead. You,
Okay, I was just saying thank you. And so now that we know it's probably always been around, it just didn't have that name. It wasn't termed
yes,
as such, but
yeah,
we've had the condition amongst us. And I think when the Word of God tells us the poor will always be amongst us, that comes in so many different forms, and we just need to be mindful of that and to serve.
absolutely. Okay, good. So, in case you guys are just coming on, she just did a quick recap of where we left off as well as what we covered on last week. So, we're going to pick up from where we left off, and that was the history of autism. Now, we want to talk about some of the relevant findings regarding autism. What are some of the relevant findings?
Well, when we talk about relevant findings, I'm going to talk about the research basically. And there's just a few points there, because I know every person who has a child on the spectrum would love to know, how is their child brain different from a child who we consider normal brain? Because I've went on and on about neurodevelopmental, I mean brain development, and that the developing brain of a child on the spectrum is so different from the developing brain of a child that's not on the spectrum. And the strange things about it is, The children with autism have what we call hyper connected brain areas, hyper connected. And so we're able to know that by looking at images. We have CAT scans, MRIs, and all kinds of scans that you can look and see images. And so when you look at the brain of children on the spectrum, it looks like they have too many nerve fibers. It's like
Mm.
for ours is for every one, they may have 20. So it looks like bundles and bundles and bundles of connections there. And you would think, well, okay, with all those extra connections, that means they're going to have extra stuff going on. Well, those extra connections are not working enough to facilitate communication between parts of the brain. So it's there, but it doesn't help, it hinders. Okay, so when you think about that, scientists think that all of this extra circuitry may affect brain size as well. So when a child on the spectrum is born, their brain initially is either smaller or the normal size of a kid that's not on the spectrum. But by the time they get to age 6 to 14 months, it
Yes.
has just super swollen almost. It's expanded in size. And so once they get age 2, 3, 4, their brain is much larger than the other children's brain their age. So it
So
goes,
is the large is being too large? Is that what you're saying? It's too large.
well, it's not too large if it's inside the head, but it's larger than normal. Their
Okay.
the organ itself is larger than
Okay.
normal children brain.
Wow.
And there is all this extra connected activity going on. And I think that plays a major role in increasing the size of the brain.
Does
Okay.
a child exhibit any kind of physical um, can you see it physically without going into x-rays? Can you see it and do they have pain? Do they have blindness? I mean, how?
Okay. From what I understand, it doesn't cause a deficit in that way
Okay.
by having all the extra fiber there. But what it does do is cause sensitivity in areas. When we talked about the noises and the smells and the sounds and the different things that trigger them, that it affects
Yes.
them in those ways.
Okay.
But as far as, but then there's a benefit also. So back to the relevant findings, we know that the normal size brain is not as large when it's fully developed, as a kid.
Okay.
But we also know that when it comes to specific areas of the brain, for instance, when it comes to the ability to process what is heard, children on the spectrum can't process what they hear as fast as normal children can. So that's why in my instructions, when I'm writing behavioral programs, I always tell the parents or the teacher or whoever's carrying out the program to make sure when you speak to the child and when you address them, make sure you speak slowly and make sure you give them small steps of directions and increments and try to speak soft and slow, because then you give them the time that they need to not only hear you well, so that all of the sound is not running together,
Mhm.
but they can hear you clearly, and then they can benefit from programming.
They can
Sometimes,
then process it. Excuse me. They can process it. Okay.
absolutely,
Okay.
sometimes we're not meaning to do it, but we inadvertently will speak at the same speed and sometimes a rapid speed as we are with others. And what we're saying versus what they're hearing is two different things.
Okay.
It just sounds like a lot of noise to them. So we ask, everyone carrying out programs to be mindful of that. Now, on the flip side of that, a child with Asperger's can process visual stimuli 10 times faster than we can. So it's 10 times more powerful. So isn't it amazing, their ability to process
Yes.
what they see
That is.
10 times faster than what we can do?
Why is it faster with Asperger's? Do
I
they
don't
know?
know, with the exception of when you look at the scans and the area in the brain where the occipital lobe shows where that part of the brain is for vision, where it comes from the back into the front. We've seen when with imagery and how it's done is when you have them under, just say, a scan, and you put something there for them to visually see, okay? And the area that lights up in the brain, you can see how it lights up and surpasses when the same thing is done with the person that's not on this, that does not have Asperger's, a
It's
normal
al-
person.
it's
It,
almost I mean it's almost like um, there's there's a blessing in a way
it is.
with one where there isn't with the other, but where the other has a blessing in another way, and vice versa. You get what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And
Because the brain being larger, like I'm going to have to go and read up on that. You just kind of
yeah,
threw me with that. The brain being larger, you would think would be some kind of major hindrance to the entire body,
well,
some kind of way. But because you said swelling, so swelling,
it's not
that's what happens
swelling.
in comas.
It's not swelling though. It's just
Oh,
matter, gray matter. You know, it's
it's just
gray matter,
okay.
and they
Okay.
just happen to have more gray matter than others. You
Okay,
know,
so help me with this. Everybody that knows me, they know I'm a caregiver for my mother.
okay.
She's had two strokes. Some of the things that you described just now, I'm dealing with her with strokes. So are the two somewhat parallel?
Strokes.
Such as the
Yeah,
processing,
yeah,
such as not
yeah.
being able to comprehend and
The-
process.
I'm reluctant to speak to that because
Okay.
it's not my area of expertise.
Okay.
However, apparently there is something in the works because I had someone share with me a couple of days ago where they are trying to get this medication approved that they are not only going to want to use with children on the spectrum, but also with patients with dementia. And so
Yes.
my thing was this: I said, listen, until something is FDA approved for children with the correct age and for the correct condition, do not even think about trying it. And I don't know of any attending physician or psychiatrist that would do that anyway, that would give a patient something prior to it being approved, unless they just trying to do some research or something on it. And that does happen from time to time. But the brain and its ability to process, the aging brain, I would think, just from understanding biology, the aging brain would probably have so many other things that are competing with memory. Um,
Yes.
and so it would be areas of the brain that, for whatever reason, the recall may be slower. And then there are so many things in our environment and so many things that we're subjected to that could easily interfere with the brain, even when it's not aging, not having enough of brain food, the omega 3s, the omega 6s, going through menopause. Oh my, it's just stress. Just it's so
Yes.
many things that could cause us to have brain fog, and let alone have an aging brain or early signs of dementia or stroke. Or and then the thing about strokes and aneurysms and things of that nature and brain damage, whenever damage occurs, if you don't get the proper treatment and therapy going immediately, you're going to lose out because what you regain in that 1 year time, you got 1 year from the time it actually occurs to be very aggressive about treatment. And generally, whatever is recovered within that 12-month time, that's what you're going to get. And so I do advise people all the time, even though that's out of my area of expertise, I do understand the brain well enough to know that it can and will heal with the proper therapy and treatment, but you can't be slow about it. And we'll talk a little bit toward the end about what I mean by how is it relevant to treatment. And it's going to be about consistency. It's going to be about repetition, and it's going to be about integrity. And that's going to be with any treatment that has to do with neuroscience. Period. You got to be about your business. And so, if there's a therapy that's been recommended, you got to do it consistently. You got to be repetitive, and you got to carry it out the exact way it was prescribed. And if you
Okay,
do
let
that,
me
the brain has the tendency to be able to engage in. a process where it can make new pathways.
Okay, so it brings me to this question before we get to the next question about the epidemiology.
Okay.
Because you are saying so much, I have so many questions, but from a layman's standpoint of view, I don't have obviously a child with autism, but I have a nephew who's autistic, and so what I'm learning about it this from that particular standpoint, it sounds like the part of the brain that houses autism is the cerebrum. Is that correct? The largest part of the brain, because that's where there is, your thinking, your senses, your movement. And when there's damage to that part of it, um, sometimes you don't get that back, or it's in the cerebellum that you don't get it back, because in the cerebellum we have, the controls and balance, the control balances, and the coordination. And the reason I say that, because I read up a lot on the strokes, and when strokes happen, there's a part of the brain, depending upon where it happened at, between those two. When there's three now, there's the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the brain stem. But when that stroke happens in the area of the cerebrum or the cerebellum, part of that never returns. So they're not able to either handle thinking, or they're not able to, move anymore. So what happens is I'm constantly doing what you just said, and that is repetitiveness. Stand on top of reminding her, this is what you do, this is where you go, this is how you move this is how you move that. I said all that to say this. Does that sound like autism, and the same type of practice when you say you got to be on top of it fast, meaning the parents have to, if you're going to teach the child or lead the child into talking, you got to, it's repetitious. But then at some point, the child never gets it. Just like my mom, it's never going to come back. Do you get what I'm saying? So in some cases, the patient it may return, but then in some patients, it may not return. Do you follow what I'm doing here?
I follow what you're saying, and I want to address several different things. You said so much there. You said a ton. So let me just start by first clarifying autism and how it's diagnosed as to what it is, and then share about what part of the brain is affected, so that we don't get it all twisted. So, but again, autism is something that's diagnosed as an individual have challenges with their social skills. We said that. Individuals have challenges with their communication skills. And then thirdly, they may have issues with behaviorals, may or may not. And they may or may not have intellectual challenges, because some of them have Asperger's. Well, the part of the brain that has to be affected in order for a person to get the diagnosis of autism is the area where they experience empathy, because they tend to not be able to put themselves in place of someone else. They can't think in terms of how this person may feel about that. We know that, and that's the dead ringer for autism. But when we think about the brain in general, even though it's a mass of gray area, it can be compared to a ball of plastic,
Mm-hmm.
soft plastic. And I say that because there's this process we call neuroplasticity, brain cells
Yes.
neuroplasticity.
Okay.
And so the repetition, saying and doing it over and over with them, the consistency of making sure that you don't skip treatments, and then the integrity where you don't skip steps. If you're supposed to do it twice a day, you do it. When you do it exactly as it prescribed, you give the brain an opportunity to create new pathways. When I tell you he gave us an organ that's meant to last forever, and most of us use a very small portion of that gift, very small portion of it.
Yeah.
And it has the capacity to rebuild pathways and do. That's why I emphasized whatever you can get done within a year of an injury, or stroke or aneurysm or whatever work you can get put in to recover all that you can within that year, you got that. And because anything after that is going to be slow and maybe not. So
Okay.
that's why it's important to be so aggressive with treatment early on, as soon as you can behind the injury. The kids with autism didn't necessarily have an injury, their brain just developed differently than ours. And so that's the beautiful difference. But I appreciate you getting on point with knowing the three parts of the brain. You got them down pat, because you got
Well,
to take care of your mama. You got to know what's going on with the girl, and you being her everything, and you should, because if you don't do the research, when your physicians are talking to you about her, you're going to be kind of clueless. And then if you want to ask questions, you can't ask a question if you haven't read up to kind of understand. And I think personally, you're doing an amazing job.
thank
Uh,
you so much. I ask that because it just sounds like there's a lot of similarities, and I find that there's a lot of frustration, dealing with strokes, people that have strokes, and so I'm imagining there's
yeah,
some frustration dealing with, autistic
yeah.
children.
And let me just use this now that you brought that up. The frustration, that's key. Frustration is going to be centered around your emotions, right? Your emotions got to be up and down. You get frustrated. You can't get frustrated without having some form of an emotion. And you have a brain within your brain. I call it your emotional brain.
Okay.
Okay. But
Okay.
there's a brain within your brain where all of your emotions are housed.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And so, and generally, that's the part of the brain that we talk about medications for psychotropic medications. It tends to target those areas of the brain. But the actual scientific name is limbic, 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 your limbic system. And that's that brain within your brain that houses all of your emotions. And when you get angry, it comes out of there, when you get frustrated, things of that nature. So you're on point, sis.
Okay. So
you know,
then tell me this. Can the autistic children detect the frustration?
no, and that's the thing that worries me about them. They cannot detect another person's anger or frustration. They don't know and see danger. They can't read social cues, and that's where they can put themselves in harm's way, because that's part of lacking social skills. A normal child, age 2 or 3, you can look at them a certain way and they know if they're in trouble and they know how to go sit down. Or you can look at them a certain way and frighten them and they're going to run, scream, and call mom or daddy. They know social cues, whether friendly, unfriendly, dangerous. Kids can see that. They pick up on it because they can pick up on what the social cues are from another person. Our babies on the spectrum can't do that.
Okay. That's interesting. I'm sorry to cut you off, but I got to
It's
get
okay.
this
It's
in real
okay. It's
quick.
okay.
Okay. Then there's a couple of children that I know that have been um, diagnosed autistic.
Mhm.
One of them, I show them love. The short of the long question is they seem to pick it up. So I'm wondering, are they really autistic? Because one, he grabs my face and he's looking at me like he understands that I'm saying to him, I love you. And I kiss his hand and I rub his hand and I give him a hug and he literally just takes my face and holds it.
Right.
Will autistic children, that's
Okay, they can be on the spectrum and still learn to engage. I had several babies on my caseload across the years that looked forward to that from me, but they don't and did not do it with everybody. Okay, so even though most of the time they are disconnected from people in general, they can learn, or somehow along the way they have been reinforced. There's something about you that they like. Okay, it could be the way you smell, it could be the sound of your voice, it could be that with the softness you touch them, or it could be with the you're not even aware that you maybe like a deep massage, like to the arm or the leg or the finger. It's something about your touch, smell, something that's appealing to them, and it's getting their attention. and
Yeah,
seem to
this
move forward.
Dorothy is saying that she has
Huh?
a she's saying the same thing. Her
Okay.
friend has an autistic son, and
Can
he
I?
seems to move forward. Yes, go ahead.
I want to share something with you all, and I hope I can share this without crying. I want to say this because this thing with the children on the spectrum is so much deeper than
Yes.
I think we still even know. I was in England. I was standing outside of Buckingham Palace, and it was people all around. They were about to have some big event. In Buckingham Palace, and the police was everywhere, and they was just stopping and going. And I was just kind of standing there taking it all in, and this little small school bus pulls up. And for whatever reason, the short buses are the same all over the world. The kids with special needs are on the short buses. And it pulls up and it stops. And I mean, I see it, but I'm not really paying any attention to it. And the kids on the bus all run to the window and they're trying to get my attention. They don't know me. I don't know them. I'm in a foreign country. I'm just a tourist there taking it all in. Actually, I was there doing a presentation, research presentation. But but the short of it is that they saw me
Okay.
and they wanted my attention, and I didn't know it. And someone touched me and said, "Those kids trying to get your attention." And I looked over there and I got closer. And when I tell you, they were smiling at me and waving like they knew who I was.
Wow.
That that messed me up, and then I could just feel the spirit of God. I said, "Lord," He said, "I am everywhere."
Yes.
And so I don't want to discount these kids as not having a six, seven, eight, nine, and 10 sense that we don't have. Because it was so important for them to get my attention and to wave, if I mean to wave back at them. And just do that with them. And the entire time until that bus pulled off, they were just, you know, and it just something went all over me. So I'm saying that I think there may be certain of us, not all of us, that these kids recognize on the spiritual level and they connect.
So that's I ask it because of the comment you made about they're not able to detect socially,
Right. Yeah,
right?
they
But
don't.
I'm asking like Dorothy, she's saying, is he autistic or something else? Because if the child, again, in the case of this young little boy I just mentioned, and then my nephew even, he would look forward to somebody playing with him. He would look forward to his granddad, his mom, his father. You know, if he come to you and he wants to play, and if you continue to play with him, then every time he sees you, he wants you to play. My nephew will lay on you as an indicator, like play with me. So if they're able to move to some kind of
They
progress because of,
that's progress. We're going to talk about social groups here when we
but are
start
they
talking
autistic,
about
or you
that.
have to see them to know?
Well, again, somewhere along the line, they were not showing signs of having a social awareness.
Okay.
Okay, at some point, or they would not have gotten that diagnosis. Somewhere along the line, it was there. Now, somebody has been working with them apparently, and they are learning again. Like I would say, the repetition and the consistency will cause them to learn to do things that they were not doing. I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna show you later about some communication programs and what happened within a six week period of time, and how the brain scans change from just a communication program. So again, neuroplasticity is the word I want you all to embrace, and the fact that God gave us a brain that can create new pathways when we provide programming, whether it's social, behavioral, communication, and all the others we're going to go over, where the person on the spectrum does not have to remain in a world alone, that they can learn to tolerate the world we're in. And it's all about increasing their tolerance. If
Yeah.
no programming occurs, they're going to just stay in their world all alone and say, I don't need people. But if they consistently have someone in their lives that is working with them, whether it's intentional or just being loving, yes, they will definitely make progress.
Okay.
Yes.
So Here's a question, and thank you for this question, Lawanda, because this is what made Dr. Burkett respond to me. I posted a video where the child was autistic and um, was out of hand with the parent didn't know what to do. And so this is the question. I have an autistic grandson. He is 7 years old. His parents are struggling with him. He has anger issues and they do not know how to handle it. Do you have a suggestion?
I do. We need to find out what it is that's upsetting him. First, communication. Try to increase communication skills. Try, because if we can find out why he's angry, what's upsetting him, what is it he's trying to communicate, and start working there. Okay. And so, if the communication is worked on first, then the anger issue may dissipate. But if they learn that it's not that and that he's aggressive, once again, and then it could be something in the same center that's producing something else. But until we can find out the reason for it, is he trying to get away from something? Is he trying to gain something? Is it something in the atmosphere he doesn't like? Or it's so many questions where you have to almost do a functional analysis to find out what's the function of his aggression. What is he trying to communicate? And then from there, we can determine which type of program, if it needs to be a communication program, a behavioral programming, or if the aggression is so bad that someone's going to get hurt, then we may have to talk about medicine.
Okay, so Lawanda, if you're still
control.
I'm sorry, say that again.
I say, and the medication is just until you can get the behavior under control.
Okay,
you know,
so
because they can't. I tell people all the time, if your baby is preoccupied with something that they can't let go of, or if they're too aggressive, even when you have them in a program, they can't benefit from it if they can't focus on what you're trying to do with them. And that's when a little medication can help them relax enough to see what it is you're trying to teach and benefit from programmatic experiences. But never to have it like live on it from now on and as a fix. But just help the child grow, help them to gain as much as they can by implementing programming and letting them benefit from the whole process of neuroplasticity, because it's real. It's real.
Okay, so what if the child, and I don't know, Lawanda, if you're still there, what if the child is not verbal and they're acting out?
They need to be.
How do you determine communication when they're not verbal?
Okay, until you can get them to a speech and language person, I would put pictures all over my house, low at their eye level, and let them point and show and communicate. A person who's nonverbal, you first need to find out if there is a possibility for speech to be there, and that's where you want to get them in front of a person with speech and language. And in addition to that, it's always a good idea to just flood your home out with pictures of everything, like a picture of the bathroom, a picture of snacks, a picture of bed where you sleep, picture of water, and just have all these pictures at eye level for the child, where they can literally go and point to what they want. Because you'll be amazed that sometimes they may just say, I need some water, but lacking language, they can't say, I need water, I'm thirsty. But if you've got all these pictures available, you know what I'm saying? What they can routinely, and you can go over with them, that would make life a whole lot easier for both the child and the parent or the caregiver.
So that's really a good idea what you just said. Okay, here she's responding. Thank you so much, Lawanda. He is verbal, but he tends to act out when he doesn't get his way.
Okay, he's like the rest of us. That's normal. He's like the rest of us. I act out too when I'm not getting my way. So is this, he's just spoiled. But at the end, now, that's another thing I want parents to not give their kid a pass on. For all of the things that makes them part of the spectrum, there are a lot of things that has nothing to do with the spectrum, and they just being a kid, and you're gonna have to call them out on it. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And
so you're saying chasten the children. Don't hold back. Don't hold back on your chastening and correction.
Hold them as to same way you with your normal child.
So you treat them.
The only difference is this. I don't think you should treat kids on the spectrum differently because you want them to learn to be able to fare in a society where rules and regulations are. And we live in a society where that is the case. But where you have to prepare them for it is the things we're talking about, the programming we're going to go over in just a little bit, the things that we could put in their lives so that they would be better prepared and to understand why, okay, you're losing your time with your whatever the device is that they like. You're going to lose 15 minutes or 30 minutes for having this device because you did this. You can communicate that to them.
Okay.
And when they um, let those 5, 10, 15 minutes pass and they were a good baby, you're going to celebrate them. I really like how you learn to calm yourself down. Now here's your toy back or whatever it is. Mommy
Hmm.
appreciate you. I love you. And, just have a little quick party there.
But
You
I
teach.
think it's huge what you said. Don't separate the treatment. I
That's
remember Holly Pete did say that when her son was born and she came out about knowing he was autistic or his diagnosis, right? And
mhm,
she said one thing she determined to do after she did her study on it, she
mhm.
said, I was not going to treat him any different.
That's right.
He needed to see what applied to the other kids applied to him.
That's
And I
right.
think that's powerful. So I hope you guys are getting that. Here's Lawanda. She said, okay, good to know that you have to hold him accountable. I fear for him as he gets older. Do you want to
Absolutely.
respond to that comment?
I do. And let me tell you something, Miss Killingham, is that what it is, Miss Killingham?
Yeah.
I appreciate you for everything you're doing for that baby. And I say hang in there because it's going to pay off. Um, and make certain that you continue to intentionally engage him in every kind of programming, preparing him for becoming 21. As long as he's under 21, you're going to have a lot of help that you're legally entitled to if you go after it. But the transition comes in. So I would say around age 16, you want to start preparing him to be independent as much as possible. And you want to get him to a point where you want to find out what his skill sets are and what it is that he could do independently. Because the transition will come and he needs to be ready. And lo and behold, none of us know when the good Lord is going to come back and get us. But if the good Lord should come get you before he come and take your child, you don't want to feel like you didn't give him a fair chance or you didn't equip him. So um, look at his strengths, look at his lesser developed skill sets, and work on the lesser developed skill sets and accent his strengths. When I was in Hawaii and doing my research there, um, there was a let's see how to there was a program where there was a bistro set up with some of the teenagers on the spectrum, and I think I talked about it a little bit because the girl was changing duties, and I thought she was going to have a meltdown and use her knives, but she didn't. But they were able to learn to cook, sell food to the community. They had a florist on the spot where they grew all of these exotic flowers. Um, there was what else they had going? They had several things going where these children could, not children, they were teenagers, could take this skill set and literally go in the real world if they wanted to and get a job because
Girl.
they because they had been taught a skill set. And the thing about it is, I don't know how it is in Michigan, but I tell you what, a lot of the young people in the South don't want to work, and there are plenty of jobs available because they don't want them. And I'm saying all that to say that you can prepare them to be as independent as their skill set will take them, and that a lot of corporations will give them an opportunity to work for them because the corporations get a tax credit or something whenever they employ people that have these types of disabilities. So it's a win-win. So the corporation, if the person on the spectrum is well mannered, have the skill set to do the job, they'll get a job because it's a win-win. The person who owns the business get rewarded for hiring them, and then the person on the spectrum get to live independently. So
Listen, what you just said, I am like, I can't believe it. It was almost word for word what Holly P said. I followed her early with her son. I have been following her for years because I just have a heart for autism, not knowing that I would be where I am with having a relative. However, she said exactly what you said. And from the time her child was a baby and she started doing the research, she started implementing all that you are talking about. And guess what? He's driving, he's independent, he's working. And she talked about how 21, by the time she said, I needed him by the time he was 21 to be on his own. She nurtured him. So I'm hoping parents and grandparents, you are looking and listening to know that there is hope. Okay, I'm going to shut up. Luanda is giving you high praise. And Dorothy has a question. This young man was on meds that left him lethargic and they had to take him off, and he's severely depressed. He's so afraid in class to let the teacher know he needs help because he doesn't want to bring attention to himself. What can his mom do to help him? By the way, he's 15. Well, Dorothy, first of all, is this relative to your prior question about your friend's autistic son, or are you asking someone else? I just want to make sure that we're talking about a person that's autistic. Okay. Do you want to address it, or you want to wait, Dr. Burkett, to see if she will pinpoint what she's talking about?
I guess we could do it generally. It's a look at this. I guess we can do it generally, as
Okay.
opposed to now the number one thing, whether the kid is on the spectrum, has ASD or not. The first thing they need to do is get that baby back in front of the psychiatrist or the attending physician or whoever prescribed those meds.
Okay, so hang on. She said yes. So
It is
she's talking about her friend's autistic son. So that's her question. She's saying that he was on the meds, left him lethargic, he had to come off, and now he's severely depressed and afraid to say something. So what can you say to that?
the fact that he's severely depressed concerns me, and therefore he needs to be back in front of the prescribing physician yesterday. He needed to be that needs to happen like right away, because if it is a side effect, or if it was tapered too quickly. See, when you're on meds, you have to communicate regularly with the attending and prescribing physician, because you have to make sure that the physician has to make sure that when they titrate it and go up on it, that they go up at the right rate. And when they taper it and take you off of it, they don't do it too quickly, because these things can happen. If he comes off of it just all at once, it could produce severe depression. So the mom needs to make sure that she's talking to and get that child back to the doctor. And I can't emphasize that enough, because you don't know what could happen as a result of a person being that depressed. My least worry is the child not wanting to ask the teacher a question, because you got a lot of students be too embarrassed to ask questions, and they ain't on no meds, nobody meds, no diagnosis. They sit there in the classroom, because it's typical for teenagers at that age to be shy about not wanting their classmates to know what they don't know and things of that nature. So we're not going to blame that on autism.
I have a question. I'm
Okay.
sorry, I'm so sorry. You said we're not going to blame it on autism.
We're not going to blame that on autism. We're gonna say what needs to be said. Please get that baby back to the attending physician, the prescribing physician who prescribed the meds, and let them know, and let them look at that depression part. That's the part that we need to focus on right now. Is make sure that that's taken care of.
That's good. That's good. All right. We've got about 12 more minutes. Um,
We
I
never
know
got
it
to the
goes
meeting.
fast. No, it goes fast. So LaCara is saying, this is a good subject. My daughter is in the 5th grade, and they have a program that she helps with the autism, and she loves it. So now let's think about this. That's a good comment. Can a 5th grader help with the autism? I guess my question, LaCara, can you send back and tell us how, in what way she's helping? But go ahead, Dr.
Oh
Burkett.
yes,
You want to
I
address that?
love peer tutoring. I love peer influence like that, because having another kid that we consider normal to work in the environment, and we do it all the time with the children on the spectrum, is not only does it gives them a chance to model what good behavior looks like. Her daughter could be there, and just being there and being present in the moment, and being caring and gentle and kind. You never know, the kids on the spectrum may connect to her. That could be her gift too. but it's
Mm.
always a good idea to have the normal children. I just believe in what they call it in school, mainstreaming them, putting them all there together. I know that a lot of times parents don't want their children in the classroom with children who have needs because they say, well, my kid is being held back. Why? The teacher has to slow down and deal with these other children. Well, what they don't know is that their child is learning empathy, and their child is learning the way of the world, and their child is learning humility to be able to be amongst kids who are less fortunate. Their child are learning how blessed they are. I think that it's a disservice not to want your child to interact with people who are special in neurodiversity community. And the flip side of the coin is the children in neurodiversity community, they get to benefit from the other children to see how they behave and to see how they interact and to give them a chance to see a different behavior being modeled, hearing speech and language being used. So I don't get it why these parents don't want that to happen, but I think it's beautiful, and I would encourage children. I mean, here we have one of my colleagues. I don't know if he's doing this much now, but he would have a camp every year. He has this big old place out in the country where he has horses and stuff, and he'll get the kids straight out of school to come out and work with the kids on the spectrum and let them do horseback riding and stuff like that, and just
Okay.
mainly babysitting so the parents can take a break. And
Okay.
so these are some things we'll talk about later, but I think it's beautiful.
Okay. She said that she helps them with their speaking and she plays with them. So you, okay. Thank you for that, LaKara. And Dorothy says, thank you. And Catherine said, I agree. Great point. And Janae said, great ideal about uh, words around the house at eye level, in addition to PECs and tablet
Yeah.
AAC. My question, because I'm trying to get a couple more questions in, we have 10 minutes. My question is based on what you just said. Um, you said it's important to start at age 16. Again, Holly Pete mentioned that age to make
Well,
sure, and then you mentioned age 21.
well, I know at 21 that's when a lot of the benefits will probably get cut off. And I say that again because having been a school psychologist for so many years and knowing how our federal government works, um, it tends to not be as generous with funds once they turn 21. And so,
Mhm.
what we have to do as providers and as servants is make sure that during those transitional years, and I say 16 because from 16 to 21 is a nice little span where maturity should have set in enough where you can start treating them a little bit more like an adult. You know what I'm saying? And getting them to think about adult type things and
Okay.
help them to master that growing period there and get them ready for leaving mama or daddy's house. And
Okay.
a lot of times they end up in group homes. They can have roommates. Here down south, they're buying houses. Um, it's just amazing.
Okay. So then they can outgrow. Can you?
They're not
Yes.
outgrowing it, but they're
Okay.
learning to manage it well. And so, autism, because it's linked to what has developed or not developed in the brain, is something that you don't outgrow, but you can learn to manage well with all of the new pathways in the brain. You can learn what to do. You can learn things to do to fare well. They can be taught, unless they are just real low on the spectrum where their IQ, say, is 30 or 40 or something. You know
Okay.
what I'm saying? Then it's a whole different situation. Being on the spectrum is going to be secondary to IDD.
Oh,
Yeah, you see, with an intellectual
yes.
disability, yeah.
Yes.
So so the IDD part would be primary and autism would be secondary. But
Okay.
so if that's not the case, if they have an IQ, close to 100 or above, you know what I'm saying? They got a lot to work with, and we
So they
should.
need to, parents need to know that, right? They need to
Oh,
know,
absolutely,
and so they
absolutely.
can know what to expect and what programs to apply. Okay, Dorothy said peer tutoring. That's great. She likes that, what you talked about. And she says she'll tell her the young man is being mainstream, and his mom says kids talking about him is a problem. Do you
Okay,
want to address
that
that?
I do. I had a couple of my clients, and one in particular had a tick, and a tick disorder is under that same umbrella as neurodiversity that we talked about autism. And because children don't know and understand and haven't been educated on it, and because kids sometimes be really mean, they can be really really mean. And so what I did, I went to the school and addressed the class and talked to them about what Tourette's was and educated them on it. So when the young man came to the class, they all understood his condition, and they were very helpful as a result because they was able to relate to what was going on with him, and it was no longer a joke or something to make light of, but something that they understood and had empathy for him. And I think that should happen even with kids on the spectrum. If they're going to be mainstreamed, I think that if they have a school psychologist at that school, that the school psychologist should be made aware of and spend some time with the person on the spectrum. And then also school psychologists should know to go in that classroom, educate the teacher and the children in the classroom prior to the kid coming in. We got a
Mm,
kid coming in, he has autism spectrum disorder.
yes,
These are the things, da 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 da. And so then there leaves very little room for mistreatment. And so at that point, if mistreatment occurs, then there should be some real consequences because the school system should have considered that almost as bullying or something. If you've been told about this condition, the teacher been educated, and then there are still problems, then mom and dad got something to fall back on as opposed to just kids making fun of somebody.
that's powerful. All right,
Mm-hmm.
two quick questions, maybe
Okay.
three. We got 5 minutes. Um, do you recommend a parent that has that has multiple children and one is autistic? Do you recommend that the parent nightly, or how often should that parent bring those all of them together and do whatever treatment to make, hopefully, the child with the autism respond or take part? Or is that such a thing?
Everybody in that household, mama, daddy, if it's extended family, grandmama, granddaddy, and all the siblings, especially the ones that are older than the child on the spectrum, should understand whatever type programming that's going on. And because if they understand it and know how to carry it out, can you imagine how powerful that's going to be and how the child on the spectrum is going to benefit from it? Because regardless of who they're interacting with, whether they're interacting with sister, brother, mama, daddy, the kid on the spectrum is going to experience the same, okay, reaction, the same instructions, the same directions. And see, kids on the spectrum can grow from that. It's when you start switching up and it's not the same and they got to figure it out, that causes those meltdowns. They like sameness. They don't like anything that's
Oh, they like
extremely different.
consistence.
Yes. And so
Consistent.
everybody in the household needs to understand what we're doing. We're doing this, and this is why we're doing it, and this is how we're going to do it. And it doesn't have to be anything so sophisticated that the children can't help carry the program out. It needs to be made plain and simple, and everybody is required to follow the instructions to help the person in the house on the spectrum. Life is better. And when it's done like that, Pastor, I promise you, oh, Pastor Vicky, that household would be at so much peace.
Wow. So
Would
how
it be
often should they do that? Every day?
as often as the program says. And it
Okay.
depends on what kind of program it is. And again, when we get to the program segments, then
Okay.
you'll have it. You have it, yeah. But as often as it's written, whoever wrote the program will say when to do it and how often or whatever. And so, but my thing about psychological programming, just the simple things of setting expectations, saying thank you, giving compliments, and things of that nature, that should just be second nature and part of our life anyway. Period.
Yeah, but I like that you're emphasizing that, because I think that when people have insufficiencies, we
Mm-hmm.
tend to treat them a little differently. So we tend not to do things like that as much because we're thinking in our heads they can't comprehend it. So let's think of another way instead of just treating them normal. Like you said, that's part
Mm-hmm.
of normal etiquette. Okay, trying to get to all of this as we're closing. Dorothy says, my concern for her, this is the young lady you've been talking to. My concern for her is him being in a charter school. Their funding does not make special services mandatory.
I don't know about how those charter schools do it. I don't want to speak to that, but I know
Okay.
when it comes to our U.S. Department of Education
Okay.
and funding, I know when it comes to 504s and any kid on the spectrum with a diagnosis is entitled to having a 504 plan. And that's a plan on how things are going to happen at school to make sure that kid needs are met. And so,
Is
uh,
504 universal?
yes.
Okay.
And so I think that mama need to go back to the office and that charter school and say, look, I need to, you all to put together a 504 for my baby and let's see what we're going to do and not ask them, do you have money? But, you know, what are we doing? Because he's
Okay.
entitled to it.
Okay, one
And
of the autism kids have a brain disorder, so he eats Play-Doh. His brain thinks it's food, but it's not. Can you
okay,
speak to
we're gonna
that?
talk about pica. We're gonna talk about that when we go over what the preschool parents can expect, which is what we almost got to tonight.
I know, I was trying to get there. Oh my,
we're,
listen.
we're gonna talk about pica. That's called pica,
Oh, it's pica.
and
Okay.
not only does kids on the spectrum engage in pica behavior, sometimes pregnant women do. Sometimes people with iron deficiencies do. And so we'll talk about all of that. So kids on the spectrum are not the only one.
Okay. All right. And Catherine says, how can the church make accommodations to help children with autism thrive in the church and church activities? This
Girl,
is such a good question, Catherine.
let me tell you something.
Woo!
When I
Love
was
it.
overseas and when I was in Australia, just before I got back home, I was visiting churches trying to help them set up programs so that the kids who have parents who have kids on the spectrum can want to come to church again. Because I've had so many of them tell me that they almost want to stop believing in God and haven't been going to church because they feel so burdened with not having any help. And so my goal was to get with as many churches as possible, show them how they can structure it and not have to spend money. I tried to do that in Texas. And so what my goal was, I would have shown them how to get students from the local universities, majoring in psychology, majoring in communication, speech, and what have you, to give up a Sunday here and there to work with the kids on the spectrum at the church while church is going on and have someone
Mhm.
in there teaching them and passing them out little things to color and paper and all and pictures from the Bible or whatever the case may be, where parents can enjoy church, kids can be at children's church, have a separate section room for kids with neurodiversity issues. Everybody win. The kids from the university need that what we call could be practicum for them. It could be externship. Get somebody to sign off on it with the right credentials. They can get school credit for having done it, and the
Wow.
parents can have a break. The church will have probably more members coming because now for those who have kids on the spectrum, they got somewhere to go to church and don't have to look for a babysitter. And I would love to see every church in America have that.
Absolutely. But you're saying make sure that it's in a separate service, not
Yes,
in the main
but
service.
let
They
me
just
tell you
have to.
something. What they did do, it's on my Facebook page in Australia. They even managed to do a service earlier than normal. Like the normal service started at 11. They had another service start at 8 or 9 where families with children on the spectrum came and the kids did too. And they gave the kids like flags and stuff to run around and, do at church. And so it was a smaller group and it was a regular service. The preacher preached. The kids on the spectrum had their flags and they were going and the parents were fed, spiritually fed, and everybody won. So they had worked with the kids so much separately that they were able to start bringing some of them into a setting at an earlier service. It's so many ways to do this when I tell you, oh my God, Pastor Vicky, if
Wow.
all people have to do is want, and it doesn't cost money the way everybody want to. We can't do it. We don't have the money. You don't need the money. What you need is some willing vessels. You need some intentional servants, some people who really give up some time. The problem is most people want to be paid. They're not going to want to serve families on the spectrum unless you paying them.
Yes.
And so I understand the verse about a servant is worthy of his hire. I get that. Nobody wants to just, everybody's got to eat. But sometimes you can't eat and you're so broke because you don't want to help nobody. That's what's wrong with a lot of people. And you're gonna
That is
stay broke. You're
that
gonna
is
stay
true.
broke because you're
That is so
stingy.
true.
You're
Yes,
stingy. And
yes.
so again, that's where they see it. But girl, if they want to set up some programs in some churches for this, I would be honored to help do it.
Did you hear that, Catherine? Catherine, she would be
I'd
honored to
be
help.
honored. Girl, come on now.
Okay, so she said, listen, you guys, we've got to go. It's 8:04. Catherine says, great idea. Dorothy, this is so informative. Thank you to myself and yourself. You all are much welcome. Lawanda says the same thing. Again, you so welcome. And then LaKara said her god sister is autistic. She's 17. She calmed down more than when she was
Yeah.
younger.
It's
Okay,
hormones. The hormones. The
it's the
hormones.
hormone.
Yeah.
So, LaKara, we're going to allow her, Dr. Burkett to tap in more to that comment you just made. Unfortunately, we don't have the time right now. As many of you guys know, I do have my mom, and so I've got to go tend to her. But listen, this show is only an hour, and we try to get as much in as possible. So I hope this has helped you. We still have a lot of questions to go. As she said, she was going to get into, what parents can expect as preschoolers. Dr. Burkett, you tell them real quick what's coming on the next few shows. And listen, you guys, tune in next Monday because
Listen,
this is going to be for the
this
next
is what I
month.
hope. This is what I would like to, and I hope we can accomplish.
Spread
But
the
I'm telling
word.
you, sometimes at live and things just the conversations come, the questions come. Pastor Vicky's brain started going 100 miles an hour, and we just have to stop and entertain what she's got going. But we would like to, God willing, and then the good Lord may be directing a lot of this, and I'm pretty sure He is. Hey, I'm pretty sure He's in directing all of it. But uh, if God says so, next time we would talk about what the parents of preschoolers can expect when their baby starts school because they're on edge and they're just really not knowing what's going to happen. So we're gonna cover those things, and then we're going to talk about the common behavioral treatments. And just because I'm a psychologist does not mean I'm going to make everything all about psychology. I am not. We're going to talk about the whole person, everything the kid needs, not only from a psychological standpoint, but communication, exercise, social engagement, the whole 9 yards. And then we'll talk about when is medicine necessary, and then we'll kind of just take in all the questions. And I have a young lady who has taken my advice now for 3 or 4 years. When I met her, her son Caleb was like 4 years old. He's a big boy now, and he is doing great. So she's going to join us next Monday, and I asked her to put Caleb on so you all can see him as well. And he just makes my heart happy. He does, and I appreciate her believing in my ability and my willingness to help her with her child. And he's benefiting from it. I mean, I went to every IEP meeting, I went to the schools, I stood up for him. I told him what he needed, made sure that he had it. And she took all of the advice, and all of the programs I decided I thought he'd benefit from, she engaged him in them. He's doing great. And as a
That's
result,
awesome.
her life is so much better. So you get a chance to see her on next time, and her baby. Her name is Crystal, and just for a few minutes. And so tonight she's helping him get ready for his state testing. So that lets you know how well he's doing. He's taking his state test. So at any
Awesome.
rate,
Wow.
yeah.
That's
So that's what
that's
we'll do
awesome.
next. That's what we'll do next week, and whatever else that we need to do, that'll happen too.
Okay, awesome. Listen, you guys, I hope you heard that. If you missed it, just push rewind. You can find the first segment on our SALT page. And I will just say this, just give me, my dad used to say, give me 3 more minutes. I don't need 3 minutes, but just give me a half a minute to tell you guys that the next live, first of all, yes, Dorothy, we're going to do part 3, Lord willing, next Monday, same time, 7 till 8. Yes, Lakara, live again is next Monday from 7 to 8. And you guys, please know Dr. Burkett is willing to get involved with you. You can email her. What is your email address that you gave on last week?
Obercat at iCloud.com.
Okay. Burkett at iCloud.com. I will put that in the comments section. So listen up. If you are not a part of our SALT, uh, which is on Facebook, if you're a lady, you can be part of SALT. Just let me know and you can join. Some information will be going in on SALT Future. I'm going to get with her because she's got publications. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so I'm going to ask her if she would, allow us to put some of those publications on our SALT page. Some things that's gonna take place on the SALT page that will not necessarily be on our regular page. However, we have SNB, which is SALT and Sisters and Brothers, SNB. ALT. You can join that. If you are not a sister and you want to be a part of this, you can be part of the Sisters and Brothers living. I'm sorry, what is it? Salt Sisters abiding in love and truth. So Sisters and Brothers abiding in love and truth. Okay, everybody. God bless you all. Thank you so much for the questions, the interactions. Dr. Burkett, you are just a jewel in the kingdom. Those listening and didn't get it, she is saved, you guys. She is a child
I'm
of God,
saved.
sanctified, Holy Ghost filled. All right, y'all. Good night. I got to go tend to my 93-year-old daughter. I love you all. God bless you. Tune in next Monday, same place, same time. Love you.
Okay.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Doctor.
Love you more.
All right.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having